It seems to be one of the greatest questions of life. Why do we age? In gerontology, we examine aging holistically by looking at aging from many different perspectives so we can better understand the aging experience. The first is the biological theory. That's how our body changes as we age, and the additional health needs and the physical issues of the elderly. That's further divided into longevity, the mechanisms of aging, and interventions to improve longevity and health span. Next, we have the psychological theories of aging. That's how aging affects the emotional well-being of an older adult. That's broken down into different aspects: the activity theory, the continuity theory, the disengagement theory, and the gerotranscendence theory. Finally is the sociological aspect of aging, and that's how older adults fit into a society, particularly one that prizes youth and progress. With that, we look at the difference in age stratification and modernization. The first of the biological theories of aging that we'll look at is the longevity theory. Dr. de Grey states that aging is a process that goes on throughout life, even starting before we are born, that is simply the accumulation of damage in the body. Aging is initially harmless, but aging eventually overwhelms the normal operation of the human body, and that's why we get the diseases and disabilities of old age. In 1900 in America, the average lifespan was about 47. And in 2010, 110 years later, it had almost doubled to 78. And that's roughly where it remains today. Some of the reasons for our significantly extended life expectancy are clean drinking water and improved sanitation, workplace safety to prevent accidental death, vaccinations to combat pathogenic viruses, antibiotics to combat pathogenic bacteria, antifungals to combat pathogenic funguses, and antithemetics, which combat pathogenic protozoa, along with advances in preventative and therapeutic medicine. Now that communicable diseases caused by biologic pathogens, which took the lives of many well before their first year and greatly reduced the average life expectancy, have been managed, people are living far longer, and thus now we have the rise of the chronic conditions, for which age is by far the biggest risk factor. According to the National Council on Aging, 92% of adults over 65 report having at least one chronic disease, with 77% reporting they have two or more. And of course, with chronic disease comes medication, most of which have at least one side effect. Dr. de Grey claims that there are 7 deadly things that cause the effects of aging, and they are the reason that our health span does not match our lifespan. In fact, our health span is often 9 to 12 years shorter than our lifespan. And that's also why our lifespan hasn't been extended indefinitely. They are cell loss or cell atrophy, division-obsessed cells, or cancer, death-resistant cells, mitochondrial mutations, intracellular and extracellular junk, and extracellular crosslinks. The issue that shortened the average lifespans were external, mostly biologic pathogens and accidental deaths. But now the issues of aging are internal. As they say in the horror films, the call is coming from inside the house. Dun, dun, dun. Now the focus of our research in aging is on interventions to improve longevity and health span. We're seeking to manage the internal damage that leads to premature aging and age-related chronic diseases. There are several studies on calorie restrictions and intermittent fasting, on eating seasonal and locally sourced food, on eating organic foods that are free of pesticides, antibiotics, and genetic modifications. All food that our body can recognize, can use as nutrients and building blocks or proteins. We're also looking into our circadian rhythms, the body's natural cycle of sleep and wake. Are we getting enough sleep? Sleep is so important for our body to be able to heal itself. Basically, we're looking on how to return our bodies to how they evolved and how we lived before the industrial age. The lymphatic system is the body's natural immune system, and is an integral part of circulation and fluid balance in the body. There are approximately 600 to 700 lymph nodes, with the number varying per individual. Every node has several afferent vessels and one efferent vessel. That is the number of vessels going to it, with only one going away from it. And I'll explain why that's significant in a moment. The nodes are the locations of lymphocytes which attack foreign invaders and multiply in case of infection, which causes the lymph nodes to swell. This not only fights infection, but it also keeps fats, toxins, and waste products out of the vascular system, and they regulate the protein concentration within the interstitium and the lymph. In one study of aged lymph nodes, 161 nodes were harvested from 4 female and 4 male cadavers, ranging between age 81 and 98 years. The nodes were harvested from the head and upper anterior neck regions. The researchers differentiated the nodes based on 2 distinct characteristics. 38 were called solidified, and 123 were considered transparent. The solidified nodes were still palpable, and they retained that typical bean shape of a healthy lymph node. Though what's interesting is they actually had very little lymphatic tissues left. The injectables would not pass through them, and much of the tissue had degenerated or was replaced with fat. In the transparent nodes, they were no longer palpable and no longer had the same typical bean shape. They could only be identified by inflating them with injectables, and at least half the node was filled with fat. Senile involution affects all elements of the lymph node, including the cortex and medulla. The medulla was affected at the early degenerative stage. The lymph node became gradually transparent as the lymphoid tissue reduced. The degeneration continued until the transparent lymph node became an inactive lymph node without any lymphoid tissue. Solidified lymph nodes with some remaining functioning lymphoid tissues still had multiple afferent vessels. Transparent lymph nodes with little to no remaining lymphoid tissues had only one afferent vessel. Like I said earlier, I would explain the significance of this. It's as if the lymphatic system knew that those lymph nodes were failing and they needed to stop sending as much lymph to them. Just fantastic evidence of the dynamic nature of the lymphatic system. Keeping in mind what I've presented about the lymphatic system, let's go back and look at Dr. Gray's 7 deadly things. We can see how the lymphatic system helps manage 1, cell loss and cell atrophy by delivering nutrients to the cell. 2, division of cells or cancer, as it moves lymphocytes through the body to attack invaders and toxic cells. And numbers 5 and 6 by removing the intracellular and extracellular junk. As noted previously, when the lymphatic system fails with age and the lymph nodes cease to work, the system becomes incapable of performing the tasks listed on the previous slide. As the lymphatic system becomes overwhelmed, it can no longer absorb the proteins from the interstitium. When this happens, it promotes fibrosis, which increases the extracellular crosslinks. Dr. Gray's 7th deadly thing. Lymph nodes cannot regenerate, but lymph collectors can regenerate in as little as 2 to 3 weeks after sustaining trauma, such as being severed in injury and surgery, and form new lympholymphatic anastomoses. Manual lymphatic drainage is a specialized technique designed to promote lymph angiogenesis. Lymphedema is staged in 4 stages. 0 is latent. It has no clinical symptoms, just an abnormal lymph transport. People may or may not develop symptoms, but a person is diagnosed with stage 0 lymphedema or latent lymphedema if so much as one lymph node is affected. Stage 1, the swelling is reversible with elevation. It's called spontaneously reversible. Stage 2, it's manageable, but no longer reversible with elevation. Stage 3 is found only in the legs. Thick, hard fibrosis and skin changes, susceptibility to disease are often seen in stage 3. And one can only wonder if keeping the lymph collectors healthy and connected will support the afferent vessels so the lymph nodes don't stagnate and fail with age. Next, I'll look at the psychological theories of aging, which include the activity theory, the continuity theory, disengagement theory, and gerotranscendence theory. The activity theory of aging states that those who increase their physical, mental, and social activities in retirement are happier and healthier. Social and mental activities help give the person their identity, their role in society, and it gives them purpose. Wednesday at noon I have pickleball, Friday at 4 I have mahjong, and so on and so forth. It gives them something to do and to look forward to. The continuity theory of aging is an extension of the activity theory, but instead of developing new activities and identities as they age, the person clings to and continues activities they participated for in years. Their identity is linked to roles and relationships they've built throughout the years. So if they have played golf at 8 a.m. every Saturday morning, that's exactly what they're going to keep on doing. The gerotranscendence theory of aging is a theory of transcendence. In it, the individual is transcending beyond the mundane as they reach the end of their life. They voluntarily isolate themselves from society in favor of meditation and expanding their consciousness while letting go of their fear of death. The disengagement theory of aging originally stated that it was the bilateral disengagement of the individual from society as society lets them fade away. When I first read about this, I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, and I remember reading stories of the Native American tribes of the Northwest setting adrift the elder who was preparing to die on an ice floe and letting them fade away as society said goodbye to them. But in our modern society, this version of the theory has been discredited, as it has since been determined that disengagement does not happen voluntarily on a bilateral nature. The individual feels isolated and left behind, and this theory seems to be the one that most affects patients with lymphedema. Most research on health-related quality of life for patients with lymphedema has been done on people with breast cancer-related lymphedema, the most common cause of lymphedema in America. And it consistently shows that people living with even mild lymphedema suffer not only loss of function, but they also report statistically lower median scores on the emotional domain, and a statistically higher percentage of the women with lymphedema had poor overall mental health scores. People with advancing lymphedema not only disengage from society, they disengage from their body, though not in the same way as described in the gerotranscendence theory. Lymphedema is a progressive disease that takes years to grow from stage 0 to its third and final stage of elephantiasis. In this state, each leg can weigh over 100 pounds, be thick and hard with fibrosis, covered in wounds, and emit a strong odor. This image here is bilateral lower extremity, stage 2 lymphedema. You can see the swelling. You can imagine the weight of walking with those legs. You can imagine the embarrassment of people looking at them and constantly feeling fear and shame. And the sad part about it is so many people are rarely diagnosed until it's progressed to this stage. Now moving on to the sociological theories of aging, the first is the age stratification theory. That looks at where older adults fit in society, and it varies greatly depending upon cultural influences. Many cultures live in multi-generational homes or stay close to their parents in the same town, or even the same neighborhood or apartment building. In America, the prevailing practice, though, is that once the kids graduate high school, they are out of the house and on their own, and it's not unusual for them to go to university and eventually live far from their parents. Then, as they raise their own family, they become the so-called sandwich generation, caring for children at home and aging parents who are often far away. Culturally, we have progressed greatly from the nursing homes of the 70s, in which the individuals stayed in their room or sat in a wheelchair in the hallway with little to no social engagement, to the assisted and independent living facilities of the 2000s, which emphasize social engagement and activities. Our aging parents are left with few choices. They can age at home with visiting assistants, move into an assisted or independent living facility, or move in with one of their children. Estimates are that 77% of older adults are opting to age in place in their own homes. Not only are older adults being left behind culturally, but the theory of modernization looks at how technology is evolving exponentially, making it hard for them to keep up. The socioeconomic stratification seems to be the difference between those who keep up to date with rapidly evolving technology and those who are left behind. Simply put, technology is expensive. How do the sociological theories of aging, the modernization and age stratification theories, apply to those with lymphedema? As a student of lymphedema, I was offered a scholarship from a lymphology program in Germany, because in Germany they average one certified lymphedema therapist per 6,000 people, but in America it's more like one for 100,000. This makes it very hard to find a lymphedema specialist, and even if you can, insurance may or may not cover treatment. And you really do need to find a lymphedema specialist because my research has shown that in a 4-year medical school, sometimes the student receives as little as 30 to 45 minutes discussion on a lymphatic system. New technology, though, has been developed which is shown to help lymphedema patients. Things that include pneumatic pumps that help to pump the fluids up the arm or leg, and vibration plates, which help to move the fluids around and break up and release the tension in the fibrosis. Now, going back to my original perspective and how it did or did not change. In my first project in week 6, I chose to address the question, which is the most powerful principle, prevention or repair maintenance, for enhancing lifespan and health span in older individuals. I said that prevention is the most important and I'm most ideal. That's the prevention of communicable diseases and the prevention of accidental deaths. But now, what happens when the diseases that shortened our lifespan are managed and our lifespan extended? And now the new epidemic becomes chronic disease. Your body is with you your whole life, and it remembers every insult and injury. While prevention is always ideal, it is too late to prevent childhood injuries for older adults. In my project, I said that repair becomes more important than prevention for people of a certain age, and I still do feel that way. Osteoarthritis is a disease of mechanics. Joint replacement surgeries are having fantastic results, although the age stratification definitely applies. I did a research project in undergrad showing how very difficult it was for minorities to receive the treatment that they need for joint replacement and osteoarthritis. As I've shown in this presentation, the lymphatic system fails with age, but it can be repaired. This is where the line between repair and prevention blurs. The lymph nodes fail because lymph collectors are damaged and are no longer delivering lymph to the nodes. Lymph collectors can be repaired by using manual lymphatic drainage to create the anastomoses, which then in turn prevents the lymph nodes from failing. I still say that at a certain age, prevention takes a backseat to repair, just because, like I said, it's too late to prevent those childhood injuries. You can't no longer fall out of that tree or fall on the ice when you were learning to ice skate or get tackled in football in college and high school. But every day of your life, an ounce of prevention is still worth a pound of cure, as Benjamin Franklin said. Each and every day of our lives, no matter how old, we need to eat well, get plenty of fresh filtered water, keep moving, and celebrate life. My clients often say, "Don't get old." I just say, it's better than the alternative. Thanks.